Can't see Dr. Saab. I would love to wish you,
Dr. Dev is here.
You're talking about me, I am here.
Oh, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Okay, we are live now. So good morning, viewers. Welcome to Sunday Musings by Anubhav Positive Psychology Clinic. My name is Devlina. I'm going to be your moderator for today. Our topic is surviving relationships during the pandemic. If we talk about all the research that has been going on regarding this and the effects of the pandemic, then we can't deny the fact that it has had a major financial, psychological, as well as physical effect on us. Whether it's the 19th March paper published by 2020 19th March paper published by WHO or by Nimhans regarding mental health and effects of COVID-19 on mental health, we'll see that individuals, families, and nobody has been spared, whether it's children or adults or the elderly. It's had a massive effect. We have had to depart from our everyday regular lives, and we have had to settle and adjust to the new normal. We are going to find out from the professionals and the experts from all walks of life. We've got various professionals today and experts. We're going to find out from them, A, what their experiences have been, B, how they've been helping out the society, their loved ones, and how they have been coping. So we are going to get a lot of advice, a lot of suggestions about how to cope with the pandemic, how to keep ourselves positive throughout the pandemic. We have with us, let me introduce by introducing Dr. Aniruddha. He is a senior consultant psychiatrist. He's been practicing in Calcutta for a quarter of a century. And what he did not tell me is that he's quite a literary figure as well. Thank you for being, no, don't nod your head, it's true. Thank you for being on board with us, sir. We have with us Mrs. Beena Banerjee, been a figure in the Indian film and television fraternity for over 45 years. She's got films such as Koi Mil Gaya, Qayamat Se Qayamat Tak, Chandni, Hope Your Hum, TV series like Parivartan and Uttaran to her name. So thank you for being with us, ma'am. We have Devlina Ganguly. Ma'am, thank you for coming on board. She's been with Times of India, the Telegraph, India Today for over 13 years. She's been working on financial project with MNCs at the moment. And we do count on your experience as well for today's session. So thank you so much for being a part of this. To the viewers, can I please urge you and encourage you to post any comments or questions that you might have. It's going to help, it's going to help make the session more interactive, and it's going to help us find out a lot more than I have planned for. So please do post any questions, any comments, and any experience that you might have. So let me start with Dr. Dev. Dr. Dev, can I please ask you that we have, Nimhans talks about the pathological problems that people might have had, the psychological problems that people might have had before the COVID-19 that may have had, an effect that may have increased due to the psychosocial crisis that coronavirus has presented us with. So could you help us understand how the intrinsic vulnerabilities of people have been affected by COVID-19, and what are the problems, what are the familial problems, what are the relationship-related problems, the couplehood-related problems that have been presented to you during this time?
Thank you for having me on this panel, and thank you for your question. I would start by saying that one of the things that we keep hearing experts say about coronavirus and COVID-19 is that we now and then we are facing a situation where uh, we are having to change the treatment protocol of coronavirus and COVID-19. One very interesting comment by a colleague in now working in New Zealand was, "It's such a tricky virus." Uh, this comment was made after after New Zealand saw re-emergence of coronavirus positive individuals after 102 days, which doesn't whatever we knew about this virus so far has been sort of put on a shelf and put on hold. So you see, if you have such an unknown quantity to deal with, the effects of this unknown quantity are also very, very unknown. So similarly, like we have had to redefine how a virus attacks and how the virus-related illness, I mean, we have the same illness, I mean, it's still SARS, but how it has differently affected all of us, especially people who have been infected. Similarly, we are practically defining fresh in a new manner as to how the effects of coronavirus, COVID-19, and the associated measures that we are taking, the effects are also being redefined. Okay. One of the major issues that I find, which probably we could call it a baseline on which everything is happening, is that whatever happens to us, we can sort of predict that this will go on for so long. I mean, you have a scenario where somebody has faced a calamity in their personal lives, in their social lives, in a community. You have a sort of a definition that, okay, you know that somebody has lost a relative, somebody has lost a lot of money, somebody has lost their dwelling, somebody has had a calamity in the entire community, the whole village is devastated. We sort of know what happens, how things play out after that, and we can sort of predict the future from there. But here, it's a continuous assault on on everything that we lived for and lived with. And everything is getting redefined. Okay? So, and it's continuously being, the definitions are continuously being changed. I mean, it's not like I have lost somebody who's close to me and then I have to cope with it, and then I have to deal with it, and then I come out of it. It's I have lost somebody close to me, and I have lost somebody else close to me, and I have lost somebody else close to me, and I live in fear that I don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. Every morning when we wake up, we do not wake up to a new day. We wake up to what am I going to get? And this is something that is affecting every aspect of our lives. I mean, it's not affecting my personal life in terms of something that might happen to me, my near and dear ones, my colleagues. It is also something that I will read in the newspaper about people I didn't even know about. I knew about but didn't consider in my day-to-day life. I have to worry constantly about people who are walking back from Bombay or Delhi. I have to worry about the person who used to come to my house for a day's work or half a day's work to eat out a living. So it's not something very inscribed. It's all embracing. I mean, you really can understand or you can feel the meaning of the word ecology or the ecosystem today. When you say all life is connected, you can really feel that in your lives every moment. Enough digression. I've digressed. I mean, you give this microphone to a psychiatrist and he never stops. So what happens? I mean, your question was about a specific group of people who already have mental illness. Now, this is a difficult question to answer again because mental illness is not one condition. mental illnesses can be of various kinds. People are worried, and there are people who suffer from mental illness, whose mental illness automatically makes them suspicious of others. Okay, that could be an illness from which I was suffering in, let's say, December or January, or even earlier. I might have been suffering from it for the last 10 years. And today, I have I'm living in a scenario, in a place, in a world where we are constantly worried about meeting people, about people coming to our homes, about people coming and talking to us, giving me something, handing me over something. Imagine what must be happening to people such as these, who are already suspicious that they might be harmed by other people. Not because they are suspicious people by nature, but because they have an illness which makes them suspicious. Imagine people who are anxious. Anxiety has become a new norm. We are all anxious to a certain extent, to a greater extent, to a lesser extent, depending upon our personality. The person who is already anxious, who is basically anxious, he or she is finding it impossible to manage this anxiety on a day-to-day basis. Imagine the person who is depressed, who has remained depressed for the last several months, and he or she has to manage increased stress of a new lifestyle where everybody, almost everybody, has only got greater uh, responsibilities, greater stressors, greater pressures at work when they're working from home, or at work when they're working at home. Imagine the homemaker who has no time to herself now. Earlier, at least, she could have sent the children to the school or sent the husband to the office and been, "Theek hai, I'm now free. I can sort of put up my feet and sit down." Now she has to make the tea every 10 minutes for the husband, or run after the child every second. All of it is telling very significant on this mental health. Since the lockdown has begun, we have had 7 instances of doctor suicide in one major hospital in the capital. Now, the problem is that we still don't know what is happening because there is not enough people able to do enough research in, because too much energy and effort are going into management of COVID and Corona and all the other illnesses, which are major illnesses, are getting going into the back burner. The other day, we have come to know that we might soon, in the next few years, have a major measles outbreak because newborn are not getting measles inoculation. This is not a mental health issue, but this is an anxiety-causing issue in plenty of pediatricians who are my friends. I can see them anxious because when this comes up, another viral disease getting out of hand is going to become a terrible situation. So you see, all the illnesses that we have had been dealing with, all the mental illnesses we have been dealing with, have become a little worse for each person. I will end with 2 small inputs again. One is obsessive compulsive disorder. Imagine the person who is constantly washing hands because I feel my hands are dirty. Now you are being officially told that you have to wash your hands, whether you can see the dirt on them or whether they are clean, repeatedly. A lot of people who were not really obsessive compulsive are becoming compulsive washers because they had it latent in them. And the last point is, this is the only good thing that I have seen happening in mental health scenario. People who are depressed because they are lonely are actually now feeling a little better because they have company at home, because they have family members staying, because the children are always with them. So in spite of being overworked, burdened, and distressed because of it, they are still saying, there are plenty of patients of mine who are still saying, no, I'm a lot better now. Because you see, they're always at home. I mean, I can call them if I need to, I can talk to them, and there is always a human voice at home. I don't have to keep the TV on all the time to feel happy. So this is how I think we have had this scenario play out in mental health, where existing mental health issues were there. Your Devlina, yes.
I've unmuted. Thank you, Dr. Deb. I think you've paved the way for my next questions to you already. I'll just divert a little bit, and I would come to you, Devlina. With all your experience with media, especially newspaper and news, can you tell us statistically if there has been a rise in breakups of couplehood, if there has been a rise in divorce rates, and what is the effect of this pandemic on long distance relationships, especially in our country? I mean, I know newspapers have been talking about China a lot since this started in China, and Beijing has probably seen the highest number of domestic violence cases during this pandemic, because they were the first ones to go for a lockdown. So taking from there, when we are in this lockdown situation, or we were in this lockdown situation, was there a massive effect on long distance relationships or on couplehood?
I will start with the domestic abuse during the lockdown. So, as for statistics, between 23rd March and the 16th of April this year, roughly the first 3 weeks of the lockdown, the National Commission for Women received 239 complaints of domestic abuse. And this was a significant jump, a significant increase from the 123 complaints it received in the month prior to the lockdown. Now, I am not a psychiatrist, but according to mental health experts, and from what I believe is also true, there are two reasons for this. One is the abuser who's already got an abusive nature, because we are all suffering in the lockdown. It's not that one person is suffering and becoming an abuser and the rest are not abusive. But the abuser is already frustrated and has a lot of pent up anger issues, which, because he or she is confined, now getting worse. And and this frustration and this lack of control, that prompts him to exercise greater control at home by abusing his partner or his children. And as you said, this isn't unique in India. There has been a horrifying global surge in domestic violence amid the lockdown. There have been calls to helplines in other countries, especially, it is double in places like Lebanon and Malaysia, and tipped in China compared to the same period last year. As for relationships, a lot of relationships have also borne the brunt of the lockdown. What happens to long distance relationships, especially, is the there is always hope that you get to meet your significant other, and it's just a flight away. Your partner just needs to book a ticket, or you take a flight, a 2 hour flight, a 1.5 hour flight, and there he or she is. But due to the lockdown, due to the uncertainty, due to flights being banned, due to the scare of the virus spreading, it's all been very uncertain. Many relationships have broken. It's also been a time of introspection, because we already lead fractured lives, compartmentalized lives, and it's and we normally do not have a lot of time to give to ourselves, to think for ourselves. Either we are going to work, then after work we go out for shopping or drinks or dinner with friends, or we actually don't have much time for introspection. And that keeps a lot of important questions away from our mind. We don't get time to think and ponder about what we really want, what we really have, and where do we want to be. This lockdown, despite all the work, all the extra work it brought to us, be it office work, be it household work, it also gave us the time to think, to introspect, to know where we are and where would we ideally want to be. And that is where relationships have taken a hit, but also there have been relationships, there have been cases where people have actually realized that this is what they want out of life. They have realized that they have patience that they never thought they did, and they have stuck together with their partners and they have sorted out issues. There have also been instances I've observed around people near me, be it colleagues or friends, that people who are otherwise very short tempered and they react at the drop of a hat and get into arguments, they have taken a step back. And kudos to them for doing that. They've actually taken a step back and not given in to impulsive reactions. So that's there. But at the same time, divorce rates have also gone up. A lot of marriages have broken. So talking about that, marriages have come under severe strain during the lockdown, and data available with online legal tech companies suggests that there has been a huge uptick in queries related to divorce, domestic abuse, and other matrimonial matters. To quote a legal tech startup, Legal Cart, they received 9,700 queries related to divorce, domestic abuse, and child custody in April and May. And there were only 3,800 such queries between January and March. You can see the leap there. According to the founder of Legal Cart, 34% of such queries around divorce came from Mumbai, followed by Delhi and Bangalore, the cities worst hit by COVID in India. Another legal advisor, my advo, says that they are seeing a 40 to 50% month-on-month increase in family-related queries since the lockdown. Queries are mostly related to domestic abuse, harassment, and they contribute to now 50 to 20% of the total monthly queries at the company. And this is in comparison to the 7 to 10% they did before the lockdown period. So just as there are people, friends of mine, colleagues of mine who stay alone, who live alone in other cities away from their families. They have had a very bad time during this period. The sheer loneliness of being stuck up in a home, having no option to go out and meet anyone, has wreaked havoc on their mental health. But at the same time, people who stay with their families, be it their parents, be it their partners, it's also been a difficult time for them because they got to spend a lot more time with each other and under such strained circumstances, not happy circumstances where they are going on a vacation, they know they are going to have a happy time. It's, as Dr. Dev mentioned, there are people who already are anxious, there are people who already have mental issues, and anxiety has skyrocketed during this period, and it has really put relationships, marriages under a lot of strain. A lot of people have resorted to counseling, and that is a positive sign because they are open to realize that there is something that they need help for, and they are not hesitant to reach out and seek that help. So I choose to look at the positive side of things. So just as there has been a lot of disruption in relationships, there has also been a lot of deliberation, a lot of introspection. And going forward, I think people will make a lot of effort to keep themselves connected and to tide over the differences that may arise. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Devlina. Your statistics have been an eye-opener, to be honest. this is the new normal, but this is not the normal that we are used to. And I think the adaptation is what is exhausting us, the society in general. I mean, we don't really, like Dr. Dev said, we don't really know what is going to happen or when this is going to end. I mean, at least this is a global epidemic, but our country, I don't think we have seen something like this since 1918, the influenza that happened. We've been talking about adults so far. Devlina talked about how it's had an effect on people who are at home having to spend time together. Dr. Dev talked about housewives and homemakers who've had to, who've had no rest. But Beena ma'am, I want to ask you about teenagers, children who have been deprived of so much for no fault of theirs, to be honest. So this taking them away from school, locking them up at home with adults, especially children who have no siblings, they have no age mates, they can't even go down to play with their friends because we're all scared for our lives. And especially when it comes to our children or the elderly, we are even more scared. So how do you think, how has it affected teenagers or preteens differently to how it has affected adults? What would your comment be on that?
Yes, Devlina, this is a very big issue everywhere today. Children have been very affected, especially with their first few months being absolutely, perhaps they took it as a little bit lightly, but then slowly it grew on to them. They took it extremely seriously, and then a certain kind of time frame that they were confided into their rooms and into the house started giving them a lot of insecurity. Starting school was a very good thing for the children because with that, at least a little bit of time was spent with their teachers, with their friends. Though they did talk to their friends every day, they did talk, chat around, but yet the fear was so very strong all over the place that all the children were quite, even if they wanted to go down, they themselves hesitated to, go down. They were not exactly told too much this time.
But don't you think this has been a problem also, as in the screen time has increased in children? Now the classes are online. When they're talking to their friends, it's either on phone or on video calls. Would you call that a problem as well? How has that affected the children emotionally or?
They are a little very anxious to start meeting them, trying to find some kind of an excuse to meet up with each other. And they normally try to do that all the time. So that is a problem with all the children today, because they've been used to that from the time they're growing up. They have been having friends. They're going down. They're going for a movie together or having a coffee break or something like that. Every time, all teenagers all today are going through that.
Thank you, ma'am.
What I feel is that there's a positive side also, that they have matured a lot. They have balanced themselves, especially my granddaughter. I would say that I've seen a lot of maturity in her. I have seen her grow, literally grow from her. She does have her childishness and everything, but the seriousness in her has come, and the awareness has come, and is a good sign, because sometimes, children do have that tendency of not bothering about people. But today, they're talking about each other. They're talking about people around them. They're talking about helping each other. They're talking about the awareness of understanding the situation as not only as a financial or a thing, but as an emotional, uh, you know, problem. And I've seen that they stand by each other very well. They do it better than many. They are
Thank
they
you.
are more well to. I would thank them that our generation has got a better view towards life than the previous people
So
around.
not everything about the pandemic is negative. That is a good thing to hear, that not all the effects of the pandemic have been negative. Dr. Dev, I'll come to
Yes.
you from here. You talked about homemakers. You talked about how difficult it has been for them. I would just draw from the research that University
Oh,
of
we have a
Georgia
glass of
did
water.
on relationships and on effects of the pandemic on family. Uh, you talked about homemakers, but then there are people who are working from home as well. People who've had to balance both ends, taking care of their children, taking care of the elderly at home, as well as working. what what has been what how difficult has it been, and what would your advice be for them, to be able to balance work life balance, to create a proper work life balance, and to keep themselves calm, to keep themselves stress free? Can you give us some tips on that?
Fine person I am to talk about, especially when the memes about people who are working from home shows a man uh, cutting vegetables while having a laptop on in front. You hardly see a woman being shown in such a heroic status that they're doing two things. That's primarily because you can work at several things at the same time. You
We'll
know,
take that as a compliment, sir.
I thought it was a compliment, and I said it as one. but frankly speaking, it is true. I mean, I find that the, the this entire lockdown scenario has become nightmarish for at least some people, some women who are working and now have to work from home. One of the things that has happened is something that I cannot comment on because I myself I do not have an employer who orders me around, but seems to be a global phenomenon that anybody who is working and is working from home is getting more and more piled onto their plates by the employers, and everybody has to work at till odd hours, till bizarre hours to get the day's requirement done. Now, if this is true, if it is true, then obviously it is up to myself. I have to define my work and I have to say how much I. When I can't let my employer keep piling my plate with more and more work, worried that it might get me into trouble. That's the first thing. Secondly, I have found, at least with my clients who ring me up and talk to me about difficulty in managing to balance work and home, sitting at home, I find what happens is that their daily routine has gone sort of berserk. Uh, they don't know because they're at home. I mean, what happened when I used to go to work? I mean, I knew I had to finish my morning work by, let's say, 8:30 and get ready and leave home by 9. Let's say that used to be my routine. Now I don't have to leave home. Now, the moment I don't have to leave home has turned into a scenario where I don't have to do anything. I mean, I wake up, I do, okay, theek hai, I'll do a little bit of work now. So what happens is the work that could have been done in half an hour once I sit down, okay, is now getting dragged from morning till mid afternoon. Okay, that is one clear possibility. A lot of people are getting irritable or irritated because there is distraction from the home front. Uh, let's say I'm working and the baby cries, or the child runs up and says, "Ma, this," or the husband calls and says, "Ek cup chai de jana." So husband will not make the tea. I mean, even if you don't include those I mean, if you don't teach your husband to make that tea or coffee, you can still manage to handle it if you have two things in mind. I mean, I saw a video a few days ago where uh, there was this man who was working at home, and there was constant noise from the background. Okay, I mean, the wife is calling out from the kitchen, the child is running, there is something else happening. So that happens. I mean, that happens. You might hear for ambient noise from in my household also. I mean, somebody might call out to somebody. So the boss was getting irritated, and this man who was working, he was getting flustered, and so after a while, a grandmother came and said, "I want to talk to your boss." And the man said, "No, you can't talk to my boss." And the grandmother said, "No, I want to talk to your boss. I mean, I have to talk to your boss." The boss said, "Okay, let's listen to this old lady for 5 minutes." This one lady said, "See, when my grandson used to go to the office, would you expect me to go to the office and talk to my grandson? Or would you expect his son to go there or his wife? No, because that is the environment of the office and that must be respected. Please understand that now you have brought the office to the home. This is the ambience and environment of the home, which as office you must respect." This is one point we must remember. Because we are working from home, our home is not our office, it's still our home. And there's some respect must be given to the ambience of the home. And the second thing that I keep telling people is that, yes, you're working in your office. Are you working focused all the time? Or somebody comes and says, "Hey, chal thoda coffee pee ke aate. Chal, let's go out for a smoke." You have the office kind of distraction at office. You have home kind of distraction at home. So these are the two things that you need to know about focused. And finally, what I tell people is that you must treat your work as work and not something that you do in your pajamas. I mean, this is a lesson I have learned for years from a relative of mine who has his work in his home. I mean, it's a single flat. He lives in this inner part of the flat, which is his house. And the outer part of this flat is his office. It has his office and it has his waiting room. The other office people, he owns the office, so his subordinates work there. And every day at 8 o'clock, he will come out from his side of the sanctum dressed for work with a tie and carrying a formal jacket. Every day. I have never seen him walk into his office in his pajamas during office hours. Now, I'm not saying that you have to do it like that. I mean, you don't have to wear a tie. I mean, even I don't wear a tie when I'm going to work, so I'm not wearing a tie now. But the moment you start making this demarcation that this is work and this is home, and you can make, just like you can make the demarcation by creating an office in your home. If you do not have enough space, you can create an office corner in your home. You can demarcate it by time, that this is my desk where I put up my feet and smoke a cigarette after 5 p.m. But from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., this is my office. So you can demarcate it by time. And if you stick to that time and utilize it, very often I believe, I mean, this is one point I am repeatedly saying, I do not really know if employers are putting too much pressure on employees, but I believe you can get your work done in time, including the distractions at home, and you don't have to worry that I'm working from 6 a.m. till past midnight. Okay? So this is something that I would want everybody to follow, that please understand, you have to demarcate it, and don't get worried if you are distracted at home, because you're similarly distracted in office. Dekh, kal kya kharida? It is such a nice thing. Don't your colleagues come and show you a new handbag? Don't your colleagues come and tell you what happened yesterday at the bar when they met a new girl? It happens. It happens to everybody. So this is a different kind of distraction at home. So don't get worried.
So if I would summarize what you just said, Dr. Dev, one is acceptance. We don't have to fight it. We'll have to stop fighting it, and we'll have to accept that this is what it is. And secondly is scheduling. If we schedule our day, our work hours appropriately, then the strain on us would be less. The strain on us has been in very many ways when it comes to the epidemic. If I talk about the 2020 detailed research that NIMHAS has put forward, it's called Mental Health in Times of COVID Pandemic. It's talked in details about stigma associated with coronavirus, stigma associated with the people who are suffering from coronavirus. I've heard from people who've been taken by the illness. I've heard from them as well that families who have been quarantined have had to face a lot of taboo. They've had to face social isolation, obviously by rules, but also people have not really dared to call them up to ask them if they're okay. They've had to, they've been stigmatized through and through. My question to Devlina would be, Devlina, please tell us, it's twofold. One is, what is the effect of this stigma and being isolated as a family unit? The entire family, not just the person, but the entire family is getting isolated from the societal attachments. So what has been the internal effect on each family members of this isolation? And my second question to you would be, what can we do to extend our help to quarantined families or quarantined individuals without putting ourselves or our families at risk? If you could just help us there.
Thank you for your question. I was just talking to a friend the other day, and he told me that there have been two COVID positive cases in their apartment, and their family members hid the fact from the other residents of the society and went about their normal lives. Now, before we start creating aspersions on them or start criticizing them, we should also understand that they are doing this out of fear of being ostracized. Because there have been loads of instances in the media. If you see the television, national or local, if you read the papers, you will find out that entire families have been ostracized by their neighbors, by their friends. And that is having a huge fear, that's creating a huge fear in the minds of people. Firstly, it's the virus, because not everyone who is affected by the virus is lucky enough to survive it. So first, there is the fear of loss of life of a loved one or of oneself. Second is this fear of being shunned by society. The saddest part of coronavirus is it's as much a disease as cancer is. It's as much a disease as tuberculosis is, dengue is, or malaria is. But unfortunately, there is a stigma around it in the same way there used to be a stigma around HIV at one point of time. And it's our responsibility as society to battle this stigma, because the virus in itself takes a lot from us. So what we can do is, without putting ourselves at risk, we can be there. Just as you mentioned, Devlina, a phone call to people who have a family member suffering from COVID would not harm us. I know of people, I can't hear you. I can't.
Let me just stop you there and ask you, Devlina, you talked about HIV, but HIV doesn't spread if I shake hands. That was just that was a myth. But if I am anywhere close to somebody with COVID-19, somebody who's COVID positive, I have the chance of getting it, catching it myself. So it's very different from HIV in that
I
sense.
know. To answer your question, I was just coming there. I know it's very, yeah, it's very different. I was just talking about it from the stigma associated with a certain illness. Nobody is asking anyone to put yourself at risk and be there near a COVID person. It does not make sense because it's a disease that is highly communicable. But at the same time, I also know of people who have taken all necessary precautions and they have sent across food to families who are COVID affected. I have a relative in Delhi. He and his wife have done it on a regular basis. He is a journalist. I know he wouldn't mind me naming him, Shantanu Guhare. You might have heard of him. He's a pretty famous journalist. Yeah. So him and his wife, they have reached out to families to who have been affected by COVID. They have sanitized the meals. They have taken every necessary precautions, but and they have constantly checked on such people, on such families. It's just being connected to people, helping them in whatever little way we can. COVID today has reached a place where the fear psychosis has created such a stigma that we are shunning people at the time where they need our help and support the most. Which family is going to be the next? Which person is going to be the next? So this stigma is not going to help. And there is going to be fear. But that fear should be within a certain limit. That fear shouldn't make us selfish, because this is the time to come together as a society, as a unit, because we don't know when COVID is ending. We don't even know when a vaccine is going to be there. So if we keep shunning each other, if we keep, keeping ourselves out, then we are only going to get lonelier, and the mental impact of this disease on us is only going to be far more devastating than it already is.
Thank you, Devlina. So the trick is to stay connected however possible, and to remember, if a COVID positive person or a family member of a COVID positive person steps out, then that is a risk to the entire society as well. So we'd rather find ways of helping that person so that the family members don't have to step out during the quarantine duration. Thank you so much for your input. We again will come to Beena ma'am. Beena ma'am, we've been talking about issues and taboos and all of that, but you talked about how how stressful it has been on teenagers, on young adults. Generally, teenagers or children, when they can't express how sad they are, they do have meltdowns as well. They act up, so to speak. So how important is it for us to learn positive disciplining methods, or what are the positive disciplining methods you and your family have been using to help your preteen granddaughter? And that is my first question to you. And my second question to you would be, very quickly, we adults have a very we take the easy route sometimes. We have this habit of displacing our frustration, our anger on children, because they are easy target and it's easy to do. There'll be no confrontations. Yes. So is it important for us to build resilience as well?
Very, very, very true. It's more our responsibility today to give the support that they need, because if we do not give that support to them, they themselves will somewhere find it difficult to cope up with. And as they do not even have friends around them, they don't have their own age group, they sometimes do feel very, very frustrated. They do have their breakdowns. I have seen it, that they have their, they get very depressed rather. And for very small things also, children do make it quite a big issue, because today that is the focus. You see, when we don't have anything else to do, then automatically you can't watch a TV the whole day. You can't read the whole day. You can't even sit down and talk to your friends friends also the whole day. Even if you have work for your school homework or anything of that sort, that is also taking a certain part of your time. But the rest of the time, you're with your family, you're with your absolutely close people. And sometimes perhaps a friend's depression sometimes seeps on to the other child, and knowingly or unknowingly, and she does not know how to react to it, very honestly. I've heard my granddaughter sometimes being very, very brave and talking to her friends and giving them courage, but then you can see her pain, you can see her suffering.
What do you do when you see these meltdowns? What are the effective measures that you take?
I don't do much, because see, very honestly speaking, at this situation, uh, doing anything is not the right thing. I feel letting the person settle down with his own emotion is much better, because that is what I have learned. Because you allow the person to try to understand what the situation is, how the people are reacting. If a friend is talking to me or her, she's definitely reacting, and that stays with her. It does not leave her for a long time. And she understands it, she understands the situation, she gives her hope, but yet she understands that the pain is there. So over there, that situation, what she's going through at that moment, cannot be explained to by words. That cannot. That's something that she has to settle down on her own. She has to understand on her own. The only thing is that I feel that the better the atmosphere in the house, the better the child copes up with all these outside situations. Because when you are in the house and you are close only with your family, it is only your family who can give you that support. Nobody else can. And your mind, your entire being, your entire suffering for the others can be brought down to a certain level only by being balanced by the family. It is, if you see unrest again in the family, then it is a very, very disturbing thing for the children. I've seen that in many.
Children reflect our anxiety or our calm, so we have to make sure that
we as elders have to take that responsibility of balancing out. Because if we don't balance out, then it is very difficult for the younger generation to cope up.
Thank you so much. Thank you, ma'am. We are running out of time very quickly, but I would like to end with two questions. The first one to Dr. Dev. Dr. Dev, we've talked about all sorts of things, but there is a saying, a very common saying that says familiarity breeds contempt. How true is it in this respect? Also, if I do, it's easy to shut the door or scream at somebody who's close to us, a partner or your mother or your children. It's easy if you trust them. The closer you are to the person, the easier it is to bang the door on their faces. So what tips do you have when it comes to communication, when familiarity is breeding contempt? How do I make sure the communication is effective and not insulting?
Okay, the way I look at it is that this kind of thing happens only when familiarity has already bred contempt. I mean, it's not that I am contemptuous of somebody who's living with me today to become irritable with. I mean, okay, maybe if I was married in May or June, maybe in August I have become familiar and contemptuous. But by and large, what happens is the attitude is there in me. Now, one of the good things that has happened in this COVID times, which has already been discussed, is that family members, couples, married partners, and even partners who are not married, they have actually discovered a lot of positives in the other person. and it has actually increased the respect and reduced the contempt than what it was. Where it hasn't is basically where the person who is contemptuous has already gone wrong. I mean, he is contemptuous. He thinks or she thinks, I am doing more, I am doing enough, and I am entitled. This sense of entitlement also gives rise to a lot of contempt. I mean, if I have to help in this kind of scenario, as a partner of that contemptuous relationship, I have to identify that in myself, that yes, this is where I'm going wrong. I mean, I have to stop, take a step back, look at the other person. I mean, it might be anybody. It might be my wife, it might be my husband, it might be my mother, father, child, anybody, brother, sister, whoever is there. And I have to sort of think that, is it that during these COVID times, this person has done nothing that could generate any respect? And I will in all likelihood find, yes, all of us are in difficult times, and all of us have sort of done something to come out and help the situation. If we can sort of pick that up, that positive in any relationship, in any system, these, and if we all do it, these positives are going to help in the long run in maintaining a stability in any relationship status.
Okay, so probably if it doesn't help in doing it in our heads, maybe we could just write down the positives about the relationship and the pros as to why I am in this relationship. Because obviously if I am in a relationship, then I am getting some kind of validation or some kind of positive feedback from it. So I suppose if I'm in a really bad state of mind, writing it down might help.
We often advise people who say negative things, we tell them at the end of the day, you write one good thing that has happened to you today and put it in a jar. So, and don't write anything negative. So at the end of the year, you take out 365 positive experiences and you, the year wasn't that bad. So the same thing can be applied here. If I can write down one good thing about a person whom I'm feeling negative about every day, after a week, we'll have 7 good things to read.
Right. Thank you, Doctor. I'll just end with one question that we've had from the viewers as well. What have you been, and this is open to all the panelists, please do give your inputs and share your experiences. What is it that you have been doing to stay calm and composed through the lockdown, through the pandemic? And if there has been a confrontation in the house, how have you tackled it?
Okay, Devlina, I'll go first. So, honest confession, I haven't been very calm and composed during the pandemic, not always. And there have been confrontations with friends, with my significant other, with my family. But what has really helped me is not just them, their support. They have understood that where I am coming from, and I've done the same for them. I've tried to do the same for them. Despite every confrontation, despite every fight that has happened or disagreement, I've taken a step back, and as Dr. Dev mentioned, that remembered one positive thing about each day. I have tried to remember one positive thing about each of these people I have felt disappointed with, or I felt saddened by, or I felt angry with. So I've tried to remember the good times. I've tried to remember the times when they have been my rock, and the times that I couldn't have gone through without them and their support. And that has helped me understand that this is just a bad day, maybe as bad for them as for me. And I have let go, because as I mentioned in the first place, it's a lot about introspection and realizing what you really value in life and what do you want in life. So this pandemic, it has also made us realize the value of people in our lives. That's
Thank
all
you
I
so
would like.
much. Thank you so much. Dr. Dev, one advice as to if I'm fighting with someone, how do I start a conversation? If I'm in that bad relationship, How do I avoid confrontation? How do I not make it about a power struggle? And how do I interact?
Ma'am, as Devlina has already talked about a lot of things. So when you could you could sort of go back and find out in your own mind how much of this person has been a rock in your life. And also at any point in time, if I'm feeling upset with someone, one of the things to do is to realize that the other person is in the same boat that I am in. I mean, I am also locked down. I am also unable to talk to people, meet my friends, go out for a drive, have a jog around the block. We can't. I'm not able to do this. So the same thing is happening to the other person. I mean, why should I be the only person who's allowed to vent out my frustrations? The other person is also allowed to vent out his or her frustration. So when you do that, and I say yes, sit down and tell me what you're feeling, it makes things easier for both of us.
Okay, so instead of keep it civil, instead of just venting, remember that we are all on the same boat. Beena ma'am, would you like to add? What am I going through? It's the same thing that everybody is going through.
Everyone is going through that. Everyone in this world has some place where she feels that yes, this is the end. I'm in a breaking point. Everyone comes to that stage, some place or the other, sometime or the other. You kind of tell yourself every day, you pray, you understand, you read, you do everything possible, but yet there are situations, there are times when we do break. And when we do break, I know that everyone has got a human side in them, and they understand perhaps at that moment, either understanding, or when you can back down and you can tell yourself, okay, fine, I was wrong that time, and go apologize, be a little more at home with that person, be closer to that person. And the other person definitely who is close to you, is your family, is not going to shun you at that moment, because he has also gone through the same.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, panelists. This was a great input. So I'm sure viewers have had a lot of help as well. Viewers have had a lot of food for
the only thing I would like to
just
add,
an addition. Yes.
I would like to add one thing, that I would like to tell people, please do not lose hope on yourselves, and don't lose hope on the people who you're living with, because these things are there. I'm not saying they are good, but these things, even if this thing goes, this disease goes, this will, there are so many other things that could come. So this is just building our stamina, our mental health, to tell us that yes, we are strong enough. If we can go through this, we can go through something else also. So take a positive step to everything. It's these kind of things are, I feel,
absolutely. Like Dr. Dev said, we are anticipating a major breakdown. So we'll have to keep our solidarity growing and going.
Absolutely.
Just to the viewers, if you do feel that you need help, if you do feel that you need somebody to reach out to, I would just like to share the NIMHANS helpline number. We are, of course, always here, just a call away. But this is a free helpline number and a 24/7 helpline number. This is 080-4611-0007. So that's 080-4611-0007. This is a 24/7 helpline. So if you need, just call. Thank you so much for being with us. Our next Sunday musing is going to be on domestic violence. It's called Ringing the Bell. So please be with us. I'm sure we are going to have a very exciting session on that day as well. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.